welcome once again to our 5th episode of our e-learning program for English language. I'm your facilitator, Uncle Gideon. And in this episode, we are going to talk about a whole new topic, that is adverbs. Adverbs. Alright, so without wasting much time, let us move on to our lesson objectives under this particular episode. Alright, so first and foremost, we will talk about the definition of adverb. Then we also talk about the forms or examples of adverb. Then thirdly, we will talk about the types of adverb. And then last but not the least, we also talk about the comparison of adverb. So without wasting much time, let us move on to the definition of adverb, which is very simple. That is, an adverb is a word that modifies or qualifies a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. So any word that modifies or that qualifies, or better still, any word that describes a verb, an adjective, or another adverb is termed as an adverb. An adverb gives more information about a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. So this is the simplest definition for adverb. Alright, so without much ado, let's take some examples here. Example 1, we say, John speaks loudly. John speaks loudly. Loudly explains how the speaking was done. Loudly explains how the speaking was done. Example 2. Afterwards, he smoked a cigarette. Afterwards, he smoked a cigarette. Afterwards, it's explaining when the smoking was done. Afterwards explains when the smoking was done. Thirdly, Mary lives locally. Mary lives locally. Locally is the adverb describing where Mary lives. So these are some of the examples of adverbs and what they tend to do in sentences or their functions in explaining or giving much information about a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. I hope you've gotten this point. So let's look at the formation of adverb, how adverbs are formed. So without much ado, adverbs can be formed by adding ly. By adding ly to adjectives. Adverbs can be formed by adding ly to adjectives. Example, quick is an adjective. So if we are changing it to an adverb, we just add ly to the word quick to make it quickly. Below are some examples of adjectives that have been changed to adverbs. So we have nice, nicely, careful, carefully, soul, solely, beautiful, beautifully, happy, happily, gentle, gently, cheerful, cheerfully, bad, badly, bold, boldly. So these are some few examples of adjectives that have been changed to adverbs. Alright, let's move on. Most adverbs are specifically formed from adjectives end in ly, as we just mentioned early on. But not all words that contain ly are adverbs. Take note of that. And it's not all words that end in ly that are adverbs. So words like friendly, lonely, lovely, neighborly, etc. are all adjectives and not adverbs. So kindly take note of this. And then, thirdly, some adverbs have no particular form. Some adverbs have no particular form, and so they do not end in ly. And some examples are well, fast, very, never, always, often, still, etc. So these are the formation of adverbs. Let's move on to the types or kinds of adverbs. And the first to talk about is an adverb of manner. That is the first type we are going to talk about. When we mention adverb of manner, this is the type of adverb, or this type of adverb tells us or explains the way in which an action or something happens. It tells us or explains to us the way in which something or an action happens. And it answers the question, how? How? Adverb of manner mainly modifies verbs. Adverb of manner. It only modifies verb. Don't forget, in our definition, we said adverb modifies a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. For adverb of manner, it modifies only verbs. Let's take some examples. He speaks slowly. He speaks slowly. How does he speak? Slowly. So slowly here is telling us how the action, that is the speaking, was done or is done. Secondly, they helped us cheerfully. They helped us cheerfully. How did they help us? Cheerfully. So cheerfully here is explaining how the helping was done or is done. Another example, James Bond drives his cars fast. James Bond drives his cars fast. How does James Bond drive his cars? Fast. Fast here is describing or explaining how the driving is or was done. So that is an adverb of manner, answering the question how. Our second type or kind is adverb of place. Adverb of place. This type of adverb tells us the place where something happens. It tells us or it explains to us the place where something happens. And then it asks the question where. Where. Examples, please sit here. Please sit here. Where should I sit? Here. Here is describing where the sitting should be done. And that is an adverb of place. The third one, an adverb of degree. An adverb of degree. It tells us the degree or extent to which something happens. It tells us the degree or extent to which something happens. And it answers the question, how much or to what extent? How much or to what extent? An adverb of degree can modify verbs. It can also modify adjectives and other adverbs as well. So unlike adverb of manner, that modifies only verbs, adverb of degree modifies all the three. That is verb, adjectives, and then adverbs. Examples. She entirely agrees with him. She entirely agrees with him. How much does she agree with him? How much does she agree with him? Entirely. Next example. Mary is very beautiful. Mary is very beautiful. To what degree is Mary beautiful? Very, very beautiful. The next example. He drove quite dangerously. He drove quite dangerously. To what degree did he drive dangerously? To what degree did he drive dangerously? That is quite. On this note, we will end this particular episode. But before I wrap up, let's consider this word. It has drawn my attention to something. Quite. Quite. Most often, you hear learners using quite instead of quiet. Note, there are two different things. When you use quite, it means you are describing a verb or an adjective or another adverb. But if you are talking about shutting your mouth, then the word is quiet. Quiet and not quiet. So people usually misuse this particular word. So take note of that. This is quite, that is an adverb, and then the other one is quiet. Keep quiet and not keep quiet. Take note of that. Alright guys, until we meet again in our next episode, stay home, stay safe. Remember to wash your hands with soap and running water. This too shall pass.